On a Thursday afternoon in October 1973, a 46-year-old character actor named Robert Hayes walked out of a casting office on West 57th Street in New York City and stood in the hallway trying not to cry. The audition had lasted 4 minutes. The casting director had stopped him mid-read and said, "Thank you, we'll call you." They wouldn't call. Hayes knew it. 20 years of bit parts, walk-ons, background roles, and he still couldn't book a decent part. He leaned against the wall and stared at the floor. This was it. His last chance. Time to quit. Find a real job. Stop pretending. Then someone walked out of the elevator at the end of the hall. Hayes looked up. Marlon Brando was standing there, looking directly at him. For 5 seconds, neither of them moved. Then Brando walked over, stopped in front of Hayes, and said 6 words. "Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Ask for me." Then Brando walked into the casting office and disappeared. Hayes stood in the hallway, stunned, not understanding what had just happened. What happened next, a 90-minute conversation that changed Hayes' life, remained a secret for 46 years. Robert Hayes had been trying to make it as an actor since 1953. He was born in Philadelphia in 1927, served in the Navy during World War II, came to New York in 1950 with dreams of Broadway. He took acting classes, did showcases, auditioned for everything. In 1953, he got his first professional job, a walk-on role in a television drama, 1 line, $25. He thought it was the beginning. It wasn't. For the next 20 years, Hayes worked constantly but never advanced. Background extra in films, day player roles on television, walk-ons in theater productions, 1 line here, 2 lines there. Never a name in the credits, just man number 2 or waiter or detective. By 1973, Hayes was 46 years old, married with 2 kids, working a day job at a bookstore to pay rent, still auditioning whenever he could, still believing that the next audition might be the one that changed everything. That Thursday in October, Hayes had auditioned for a supporting role in a television pilot. 5 lines. Character name, building manager. It was more than he usually got called in for. He'd prepared carefully, rehearsed with his wife, felt good about it. The audition was a disaster. He walked in nervous, started reading. The casting director stopped him after 4 lines. "Can you try it less intense?" Hayes tried again. Got through 6 lines this time. The casting director glanced at her assistant. "Thank you, we'll be in touch." Hayes walked out knowing he'd failed. Again. In the hallway, he leaned against the wall and tried to breathe. 20 years, hundreds of auditions, thousands of hours of preparation, and he still couldn't book a decent part. He was thinking about quitting. Not dramatically, just quietly. Stop auditioning, keep the bookstore job, accept that acting wasn't going to work out, be realistic. He was 46, not getting younger, time to face facts. That's when the elevator dinged and the doors opened. Marlon Brando stepped out. Hayes recognized him immediately. Everyone did. Brando was the biggest star in the world. The Godfather had come out the year before. But what was he doing here, in this building, on this floor? Brando looked directly at Hayes, walked over, stopped 2 feet away. For 5 seconds, Brando just looked at him, studying his face. Hayes didn't know what to do, didn't know if he should say something, introduce himself, walk away. Then Brando spoke. "Tomorrow, 2 p.m., ask for me." Hayes blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "Tomorrow, 2 p.m., the actor's studio. Ask for me at the front desk." Before Hayes could respond, Brando walked past him into the casting office and closed the door. Hayes stood in the hallway alone, completely confused. Had that really just happened? Had Marlon Brando just told him to show up somewhere tomorrow? That night, Hayes told his wife what happened. She looked at him skeptically. "Marlon Brando told you to meet him at the actor's studio." "I know how it sounds. Are you sure it was him?" "I'm sure." "Why would he do that?" "I don't know." His wife thought for a moment. "Are you going to go?" Hayes nodded. "I have to." The next day, Friday, October the 12th, 1973, Robert Hayes arrived at the actor's studio on West 44th Street at 1:45 p.m. He walked up to the front desk. A woman looked up. "Can I help you?" "I'm supposed to ask for Marlon Brando." The woman didn't look surprised. "Your name?" "Robert Hayes." She picked up a phone, spoke quietly, hung up. "3rd floor, room 7. He's expecting you." Hayes climbed the stairs, found room 7, knocked. "Come in," Brando's voice called. Hayes opened the door. The room was small, a couple of chairs, a table, 1 window. Brando was sitting in one of the chairs reading a script. He looked up. "Close the door. Sit down." Hayes closed the door and sat in the other chair. Waited. Brando set down the script. "You were in that hallway yesterday because you'd just bombed an audition." Hayes nodded. "And you were thinking about quitting." Hayes stared at him. "How did you—" I've seen that look before. Seen it on my own face in mirrors. You had the look of someone who's done. I am done. No, you're not. You're just tired. Brando leaned back in his chair. How long have you been acting? 20 years. What kind of work? Bit parts, walk-ons, day player stuff. And you hate it. Hayes hesitated. I don't hate the work. I hate that it's all I can get. Because you think you deserve more. I think I'm better than one-line roles. Brando nodded. Maybe you are. Maybe you're not. Doesn't matter. Hayes felt anger flash. Doesn't matter? No, because you're asking the wrong question. You're asking, why aren't I getting better roles? The question should be, why am I still acting? Because I love it. Do you? Or do you love the idea of success? Hayes opened his mouth to respond, then stopped. Brando was right. He didn't love acting anymore. He loved the dream of making it, being recognized, getting his name in credits. But the actual work, the auditions, the rejections, the background roles, he hated it. You're begging, Brando said. Every time you walk into an audition, you're begging them to validate you, to tell you you're good enough, and when they don't, you hate yourself a little more. Hayes felt his throat tighten. What else am I supposed to do? Stop begging. Brando leaned forward. You're not a supplicant. You're a craftsman. You have a skill. You've been developing it for 20 years. Whether you get 1 line or 20 lines doesn't change that. The work is the work. That's easy for you to say. You're Marlon Brando. I'm Marlon Brando now. In 1950, I was a nobody doing walk-on roles in terrible plays, begging directors to notice me, hating myself every time I didn't get cast. Then someone told me something that changed everything. What? Stop trying to be discovered. Just do the work. Whether it's 1 line or 100 lines, do it well. Not because someone's watching. Because you're a craftsman and craftsmen do good work. They talked for 90 minutes. Not about acting technique, not about how to audition better. About survival, about dignity, about how to keep working without letting the work destroy you. Brando told Hayes about actors he'd known who'd quit because they measured their worth by the size of their roles. They had the skill, but lost their dignity. Started seeing themselves as failures, couldn't separate the work from their self-worth. How do you separate them? You remember why you started. Not to be famous, to do the work. If you can't do that, quit now. Because this business will chew you up and spit you out. The only way to survive is to find dignity in the work itself, not in what other people think of it. Hayes sat quietly, processing. Why are you telling me this? Brando shrugged. Because I saw you in that hallway yesterday and recognized the look, and because someone did the same thing for me 23 years ago when I was about to quit. I'm just passing it forward. Who helped you? Doesn't matter. What matters is what you do now. You can quit. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. Or you can keep working. But if you keep working, stop begging. Stop measuring your worth by the roles you get. Just do the work. Be a craftsman. At 4:30, Brando stood up. I have to go. You can stay here as long as you want. Hayes stood. Thank you. I don't know what else to say. Don't say anything. Just decide what you're going to do. Brando walked to the door, then turned back. One more thing. Don't tell anyone about this conversation. Why not? Because it's private, between craftsmen, not something for other people to analyze or talk about. Can you do that? Hayes nodded. Yes. Good. Brando left. Hayes sat back down, stayed in that room for another hour, thinking. When he finally left, he'd made a decision. Robert Hayes didn't quit acting, but he changed how he approached it, stopped auditioning for roles he knew he wouldn't get, focused on small parts he could do well, stopped comparing himself to other actors, stopped measuring his worth by the size of his credits. He worked steadily for the next 25 years, television guest spots, small film roles, theater productions, never became famous, never got his name above the title, but he worked, consistently, until he was 71 years old. And he never told anyone about the conversation with Brando, not his wife, not his kids, not fellow actors, kept it completely private. When people asked how he stayed motivated through decades of small roles, he'd say, I just focus on the work. In 1998, at age 71, Hayes retired, moved to Vermont with his wife, spent his final years reading, hiking, enjoying grandchildren. On January 15, 2019, Robert Hayes died peacefully in his sleep. He was 92 years old. His son, Michael Hayes, was handling his father's estate when he found a box of journals in the attic. His father had kept sporadic diaries over the years, not daily entries, just occasional reflections. Michael opened one, dated 1973. Most entries were mundane. Then he found October 12, 1973. Today, Marlon Brando spent 90 minutes teaching me something I should have learned 20 years ago. He saved me. Not my career. That didn't change much. He saved my dignity. Taught me the difference between being an actor and being a craftsman. I'll never forget it, and I'll never tell anyone. Some gifts are too private to share." Michael stared at the entry. His father had met Marlon Brando, had a 90-minute private conversation with him, and never mentioned it. He called his mother. "Did Dad ever talk about meeting Marlon Brando?" "No? Why?" "I found a journal entry from 1973. He wrote that Brando saved his dignity." His mother was quiet for a moment. "Your father never mentioned it, but that sounds like him. He was private about things that mattered." Michael contacted a film historian named David Chen, who specialized in actor histories, explained what he'd found. Chen was fascinated. "Do you have any other documentation? Letters? Photos?" "Just the journal entry." "Can I see it?" Michael sent a photo of the page. Chen examined it carefully. "The timeline makes sense. Brando was in New York in October 1973. He did spend time at the actor's studio, and this kind of mentorship, quiet, private, no publicity, that's completely consistent with who Brando was." Chen asked permission to write about it. Michael agreed. Chen published an article in Film Comment magazine in March 2019. The conversation nobody knew about, Marlon Brando's secret mentorship. The article included the journal entry, the timeline, and Chen's research confirming Brando's presence in New York during that period. He also interviewed actors who'd known Hayes, asking if they'd ever heard about this. None had. Everyone said the same thing. Bob never talked about himself, just did his work quietly. One actor who'd worked with Hayes in the 1980s said, "Bob had this quality. He never seemed bitter, never complained about the size of his roles, just showed up, did excellent work, and went home. I always wondered where that came from. Now I know." The story circulated quietly through acting communities. Not a major headline. Just a story that people who cared about craft shared with each other. In a 2019 interview, Robert De Niro was asked about the revelation. "That's Marlon. He helped people privately. Never wanted credit. Just saw someone struggling and did something about it. That's rare, especially in this business." What made the story remarkable wasn't that Brando helped Hayes. It was that Hayes kept it private for 46 years, never used it to elevate himself, never mentioned it in interviews or to colleagues, just kept it as a private gift between craftsmen, because Brando had asked him to. And Hayes had honored that request even after Brando died in 2004. Even when mentioning it might have helped Hayes' career or given him credibility, he just kept it quiet. That's dignity. Not just receiving help, but honoring the spirit of the help, understanding that some things are too private to commodify. Robert Hayes didn't become famous, but he worked for 45 years, raised a family, retired with his dignity intact, and kept a promise to a man who'd saved him from quitting. The conversation in that room at the actor's studio on October 12, 1973, lasted 90 minutes. It changed Hayes' life, not by making him successful, by teaching him how to survive without measuring his worth by other people's validation. "Stop begging. You're not a supplicant. You're a craftsman." Those words sustained Hayes through 25 more years of small roles, sustained him through auditions that didn't go his way, sustained him through the knowledge that he'd never be a star, because Brando had given him something more valuable than a career. He'd given him a way to maintain dignity while doing work that nobody noticed, and Hayes honored that gift by keeping it private, by not turning it into a story he told at parties, by not using Brando's name to make himself interesting. Just kept working, quietly, with dignity, until he couldn't work anymore, then retired, lived peacefully, died at 92. And only after he was gone did the world learn that Marlon Brando had once spent 90 minutes saving a stranger from despair. That's the real story. Not mentorship, not career advice, just one craftsman helping another craftsman remember why the work matters, and both men understanding that some help is too private to announce, too sacred to publicize, too personal to share. Marlon Brando helped Robert Hayes in 1973. Hayes kept it secret for 46 years. Both men honored the dignity of that exchange by not cheapening it with publicity. That's not mentorship. That's respect for the craft, for each other, for the private nature of real help. And that's a lesson worth more than any career success.